All right, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening to join me for this first of four module webinars on for school council chairs. My name is Nancy Angevine Sands, and I am linked with the Parent and Caregiver Community Engagement Office. And joining us for a little while this evening is Margaret Horvath. Margaret, you want to introduce yourself? She wasn't.
Hi there. I am Margaret Horvath, and I work in the Parent and Caregiver and Community Engagement Office. So I work alongside Michelle Monroe, who manages the office, and school councils are part of the umbrella that Michelle covers.
Great, thank you. So I don't know if any of you were at the innovation webinar earlier this evening, but it's late in the evening. I'm sure you guys have had a long day. Your kids are in the background. So I'm hoping to get through this webinar, give you the information and answer your questions quickly. So hopefully we'll be done by 8 o'clock. I'll just share my screen and we'll get started. So as I said, these series of modules have been set up for school council chairs, but co-chairs, vice chairs, any school council member, principals, teachers, who's ever involved in working with school councils is most welcome to come and follow along. My name, as I said, is Nancy Angevine Sands. I'm a vendor with the board, and I've been linked with the Parent and Community Engagement Office this year to help support school councils. You can find me at any of the places you see on the screen. I also have a podcast, which you can find on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions that come up during the evening, I would ask you to put them in the Q&A section that you'll find at the bottom of the screen, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability at the end. So let's get started. We'll begin with the acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples. What the Parent and Caregiver and Community Engagement Office would like you to get from these four modules is that you are leaders in your school. Your school council chairs, which is very important, but you are leaders. And so these four modules are aimed at helping you to feel comfortable in the role of leader. And so I thought I'd start with this. The great leaders don't set out to be a leader. They set out to make a difference. And I know that's true of all of you. It's never about the role. It's always about the goal. And hopefully at the end of the modules that we will be doing, you will be clearer in both your role as a leader and the goal that you can help your school council identify and achieve. So tonight we're going to look at the basics, and some of this you may already know, but I'm going to dig just a little bit deeper into some of them. We'll look at the mandate for school councils, who the members are, the roles and responsibilities of all those members, mandatory actions that you are required by legislation to take as the chair or co-chair. And then a little bit about the roles and responsibilities you have as a leader of the council and a leader within the school. So we'll begin with my guy who keeps his eye on the ball. If you've taken any of my other webinars, you will recognize him. And he will pop up again throughout the next four meetings we have. I want you to keep your eye on the ball about what the role of a school council is. And that is through the active participation of parents, to improve pupil achievement and to enhance the accountability of the education system to parents. Your job and the job of your councils is to help parents and caregivers to participate in what they're doing, to participate in their children's education, and to help them improve pupil achievement. That's not necessarily about, and those of you who have heard me talk before, it's not about buying things for the school. It's about building the capabilities of your parents and caregivers to support their kids and their achievement levels. Excuse me. School councils are an advisory group. And the regulations, Regulation 612, which is part of the Education Act in Ontario, is to provide advice to the school principal or to the school board on any matter. So let's get started on what else Regulation 612 tells us. Membership, I'm sure that you know this. The first part is parents and caregivers. The number of parents and caregivers you have is determined by your bylaws. You must have at least 5 because that will help you to ensure that you have quorum. If you are still struggling with what a good number is for your school, I suggest at least 10, again, so that you can be sure that you will meet quorum for every meeting. And these parent members may be elected, or if you don't get enough nominations to fill the number that your bylaws say, they can be acclaimed. The really important part of this is because I hear from a lot of school councils and they say, oh, you know what, our bylaws allow for 10, but we've only got 8 nominations. What do we do? Well, first of all, you acclaim those 8. And then throughout the year, you can appoint parent caregivers to fill those other 2 positions so that you will meet the number that your bylaws have set forward. And the bylaws template talks about how you can fill the vacancies. After you elect your membership, you will then, the members that have been elected, and that includes your parent members, your teacher member, your non-teacher member, your student member, if you have one, your community rep, if you've appointed it yet, and I would suspect for the majority of you, you wouldn't have gone to that point yet. Those members elect the executive. Now, who sits on the executive? That is also determined by your bylaws. The only thing Regulation 612 says is that you must have a chair or co-chair. You can decide if you're going to have a chair and co-chair, you're going to have a chair and vice chair, and then, and are you going to have a secretary, a treasurer? Who else is going to sit on your executive? The executive members are then voted on by the elected or acclaimed members of council. Okay, I see some questions and answers coming in. I'm going to answer them at the end, but just keep asking if you need to. Now, I've already mentioned the other members. There's a teacher and a non-teacher staff rep. The non-teacher staff rep can be the caretaker. It can be the secretary. It can be CYWs, EAs, SNAs, whoever is in your school that is not a teacher. You can also, and you don't have to put this in your bylaws, but you can have more than one person share that role. And I say that because we know our teachers are there from early in the morning until late in the afternoon. They may not want to stay for a council meeting once a month or however you often. So if you had 2 teachers or 2 non-teacher reps sharing those 2 roles, that would be fine. But the role only gets 1 vote. So one of them comes, one of them votes. You also have a community rep. The community rep is chosen and appointed by the school council. The reason I said you may not have a community rep elected yet is because your community rep is there to support the goals and objectives that you as a council have set forward for the year. And you may want to know about where do you need to go before you appoint your community rep. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you decide, and we'll be discussing this in module 2 or 3. Let's say you decide that one of your goals is to help improve literacy in your student. You may want to get a community rep from your library. Let's say you want to work on equity in your school and with your council. then you may want to go to a community group that would be able to help you with that. The other member is a student rep. At the secondary level, it's mandatory that you have a student rep, and their student council would choose the representative. At the elementary, middle school level, it is optional whether you will have a student rep. And if you do, that student rep is chosen by the principal. The last person is the principal. The principal is a member of the council, but they are not a voting member. They cannot vote on the advice they're going to receive. They're there to give you advice, to give you information. But even though they're a non-voting member, a meeting cannot occur unless the principal or their designate, usually the VP, is in attendance. If they aren't in attendance, or if you don't have quorum, you can meet and talk and discuss things, but you can't make any decisions. You can't have any votes. So let's take a moment and look at the roles and responsibilities of everyone. The parent caregiver members, they are voting members. They participate on any committees that the council decides to form. They can chair them, or can they just be a regular member? They contribute to the discussions of the school. I think the most important thing is that they solicit the views of other parents and members of the community that they will then bring back and share with the council. So parent members, I hope, are talking to their friends, are talking to the members of the community, talking to them at their place of worship, at the store, where I used to talk to all the people when my kids were in elementary school, at the curb, waiting for them to come out, asking them what they think, what do they feel about certain issues, what sort of things aren't being covered by council, where would they like council to go? And of course, as with everyone else, they observe the council's code of ethics and their established bylaws. The school staff representatives, the same as the parent reps, they contribute to the discussion of the school. They solicit views from their staff members to share with the council. They may participate on any committees. They communicate back to the staff and the non-teaching staff what they've heard, what they've learned from council, how they may be able to build partnerships. And they observe the council's code of ethics and their bylaws. And they do have a vote. The community rep, again, represents the community's perspective, can sit on councils, on committees, builds partnerships and links between the school and the community. That's what they're there for. And again, the code of ethics and the bylaws. The same with the student rep, representing the views of the students and the student council, communicating what's happening in the council to their peers, getting information back from their peers about what they would like to see happening, what they think is not happening. And there we have the code of ethics and the bylaws again. And the school principal. Let's have a moment for the principal. Look at the small font. That's because they have so many things that they are responsible for, both through Regulation 612 and 613. They are distribute to each member material identified by the Ministry of Education for distribution to school councils. They act as a resource to the council on any ministry laws, regulations, and board policies. They have to attend all council meetings or send a designate. They consider each recommendation made by the council and return to the council with the actions to be taken. I think I'm going to be speaking to this point again, but it bears repeating numerous times. Not only are you to give advice to the principal, but whatever advice you give to the principal, whatever direction you would like to see things go, wherever you think you need help or would like to communicate with the school, the principal must come back to you and must respond to how they are dealing with the advice that the council has given them. In other words, are they going to accept the advice as it was given? Are they going to take the advice, but it wouldn't quite work, so we're thinking we'd like to do it this way? Would that work? And council can say, yeah, how about this? Or they may say, you know, it's a good idea, but it's just not going to work at this time, and this is why it's not going to work. And we're going to talk about that in one of the later modules, especially when we start talking about the school improvement plan. They are to solicit views of the council on all matters pertaining to the establishment or amendment of school policies and guidelines around student achievement. Think particularly of the SIP and accountability of the system to parents. Remember, that's part of your mandate, accountability of the system, and how to communicate those issues and plans to the public. The principal can participate on any committee, and they may solicit the views of the school council on any issue that comes up in the school. And of course, they too must observe the school council code of ethics and bylaws. So that's everyone's responsibilities. Now, what else? Well, Regulation 612 tells us that meetings must occur at least 4 times a year. I'm sure most of you have meetings many more times than that, maybe every month or every other month. You must have at least 4 meetings. And the first one has to start within the 30 days of the start of school. The majority of members must be in attendance for there to be quorum, and the majority of those must be parents. So, for example, because this always gets people confused, you have a teacher rep, you have a non-teacher rep, you have a community rep, and let's say you have a student rep, and all 4 of them show up. That means you must have a minimum of 5 parent members attending. And this is why I say it's a good idea to have 10 parent caregiver members, so that if someone's sick or they've gone away or they forget, you've always are sure of having those 5, so that the majority of people at the meeting are parents. The school council meeting usually takes place in the school. It doesn't have to. It can take place somewhere else. If you're trying to get community members more involved, and say, for example, I've worked in a community where most of the members came from apartment buildings surrounding the school, you could have a school council meeting in the meeting room in one of the apartment buildings. The only requirement is that it must be accessible, and it must be in a place where all parents and caregivers would feel comfortable meeting. Therefore, you may not want to hold a meeting in your local bar or even in your local Tim Hortons. So somewhere that's accessible and somewhere that 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 all parents will feel comfortable going. And one of the responsibilities of the principal is to give notice to the school community of when the meetings are and where they will be held. So, what does Regulation 612 say about the things councils must do? It's not a very long list. You must consult with your parents and caregivers of students enrolled in school about any matter that's under consideration by the council. You must develop bylaws. You must keep minutes and financial records for 4 years, somewhere in your school for 4 years, so that they can be examined by any person. Now, some councils put those up online. That's fine, but you would also want to have a hard copy in the school, because there may be parents, caregivers who don't have access to what's online. And you have to produce an annual written report to be submitted to the principal or the board. So I want to break these things down a little bit more. Let's start with consultation. What sort of things would you consult with your parent caregiver body about? Well, school council initiatives. And those initiatives should be based on the views of your community. What sort of things do they need to help them be able to support their children's learning? You can find that out by doing surveys. They can be online surveys, but don't stick to one method of doing that. If you're having a school event, There's nothing wrong with a good old clipboard and a hard copy of a council of the survey, and you have council members asking parents as they come in or go out of the school, what sort of things would you like? You could have discussions during your council meetings, break off into small groups with a particular question that they have to answer, and then come back. And of course, seeking that feedback from parents and caregivers and teachers about things that council could be doing to support the student achievement, to support the parents in achieving student achievement. And remember that all of your initiatives should take the best interests of all students into account. This doesn't mean that every single initiative has to do that. For example, let's go back to literacy. Maybe at one point you want to work on helping parents understand literacy requirements in primary level. Then you want to help them understand it at junior level, at intermediate level, break down the senior levels for those of you in high school. And remember that the principals and the boards are required to report back on any advice you might give surrounding these initiatives that you're doing. Now, Regulation 612 says that there are certain areas where you are required, the principal is required to consult with you. So that's around initiatives around student achievement, initiatives on making the system accountable to parents, usually that, but think how to communicate, how to get information out. They must consult with you about the code of conduct, dress code. They must consult with you about the school improvement plan. And we are going to talk about that in much more detail in one of the future modules. They must consult with you about communication plans concerning the SIP and any education initiatives or implementation of any of the plans that you see above. That is required by Regulation 612. Now, there are also areas where they may consult with you. So they may consult with you about the school events that are going to go on, or field trips, about places they should go or could go, how they might move people around, how they might get volunteers to participate, about safe arrival plans, volunteers in the school. If there's a change in school boundaries, they may consult with councils around that. Any improvements to the building or the land surrounding it. School profiles and homework policies, they're asked to consider consulting with you. School and classroom organization, and the school budget. TDSB suggests that council should be consulted with when the school creates its budget. The other area where school councils are responsible for is the establishment of bylaws. And you all know, I am sure, that the Parent, Caregiver, and Community Engagement Office has been working for about the last 1.5 to 2 years to get school councils to work with the template that was given to them and create bylaws. And I'll just quickly go over the steps. The first part is you would consult with your parents' caregivers using the PDF on what options. There are about 12 or 13 options within the template. What options should your council take? What works best for your community? Then you will take it to school council. That's usually a committee that might do that. The committee will take their recommendations to school council. School council may choose to accept their suggestions on the options or add a couple more, take some away. Then they vote on the options that they have chosen. The chair then uses the link to submit the template. Within a week or two, you will get a Word PDF document. The chair will get a copy and the principal will get a copy. If you are a model school, your CSW will also get a copy. And at this time, the council may then look at the bylaws and decide if there are any articles in their previous bylaws that have not been addressed by the template. And so, for example, You may want to put in a couple of committees that absolutely must happen every single year. Remember, if you put it in the bylaws, it has to happen. So if your council has had a practice of having, for example, a budget committee, and you think that it's the best thing to do for your school going down the road for the next couple of years, you may then add an article to your bylaws that these are the committees. There must be a budget committee, for example, and then the council would vote again to ratify the entire bylaws, and the word copy, cut and paste it into your word copy that came from the template and send that back to Margaret at the PCCEO. And always remember to make sure that there is a copy of the bylaws available for any of your school council members to look, or any of your parent caregivers to look at. A link at the bottom of the page is your link to the bylaws page on the TDSB website, and it contains both the PDF that you can work from and the template. And the final thing that Regulation 612 says you must look at is an annual and financial reports. So they have to submit an annual report on your activities. You just be very basic. This is what we did this year. This is why we did it. This is whether it was successful or not. And the principal will share that report with the parent caregiver community and with the TDSB. You are also required to do a PSAB, a Public Sector Accounting Board's report on your finances. How much money came in, how much money went out. If you want more information about the financials, you can see it at the bottom of the page. And also, if any of you were unable to attend the school council town hall that took place a couple of weeks ago, they talked about this. They also talked about communication, the school council emails and things like that. That should be up on the website by the middle of next week. So take a look there. So let's look at the chair. We've looked at the council broadly. Now I want to look at the chair and the jobs that are yours according to regulations. You must arrange for meetings, prepare an agenda, chair the meetings, ensure that the minutes are completed and handed out, facilitate conflict resolution. You're ex officio on all committees. That doesn't mean you have to attend all committee meetings. That just means you're allowed to. You're automatically a member. And you must communicate with the principal. So I'm going to go through these in a little bit more detailed way. So you have to arrange the meetings. These should be done in consultation with your principal. And when I was school council chair in my kids' elementary school, I just had a habit of meeting with my principal once a month before the school council meeting. I sort of worked on what I thought should be on the agenda after talking to parents and committee members. And then I sat and I talked with the principal and I said, this is what I'm hearing is important in the community. Is there anything that you're hearing? Is there anything you would like to see us to put on the agenda that we should discuss? You also want to make sure that you set the dates for your meetings. I suggest you do it at one of the first meetings of the year so that it goes out. Everybody knows ahead of time. Maybe some school councils say it's the first Tuesday of every month, but whatever. Pick the dates and get them out to your community as soon as you can so that they have lots of notice and they can come. The next thing you have to do is prepare the agenda, which I've sort of already talked about, haven't I? Sorry about that. I jumped ahead of myself. So what will be discussed? When you think of the agenda, you want to know what will be discussed and what's the order of items. I've already talked about talking with your principal. You need to talk with your committee chairs. Is there anything that's coming up that you want to talk about, that you want to let us know about? Council members, is there anything you're hearing when you're doing that consultation? You're talking to your friends and stuff. Is there anything that we should have on the agenda? Make sure that your agenda contains a welcome, especially for new attendees. I always hear about people that come to a meeting for the first time, sit in the back, no one talks to them, no one looks at them, no one asks them for who they are, what their opinion is on anything. Try to make that welcome there. It might contain a bit of review of conflict of interest, and that is in the template. Just that if any issue comes up on the agenda, that a member may have, that either they or a family member may benefit from the decision, they need to remove themselves from that discussion. You should always have an acceptance of the previous minutes and any matters that have arisen from those minutes. And then reports from your principal, your teacher, non-teacher, your committees, your students. And finally, new business. Let me just say about the reports. I have lost probably whole years of my life sitting at school council meetings, listening to reports that go on a long time. I like the idea of having everyone who wants to make a report submits a written report ahead of time that goes out with the agenda. It doesn't have to be written out beautifully. It can be in point form. And then at the meeting, the person who is going to make the report can pick one or two things out of their report that they want to highlight, the most important things. Everybody has received a copy. Maybe it's posted online. They can read through it. Then there's an opportunity for your members and any school parent caregivers who are attending the meeting to ask questions, to seek clarification, to provide some of that feedback that everyone should be looking for. You also, as the chair, have to ensure that the minutes are completed and circulated. That's the job of the secretary or secretaries if you have a couple people sharing the job, but you just want to check with them. Did you get the minutes? Is there anything you're not clear of? Are they ready to be sent out with the new agenda? Or if you have a habit of sending them out as quickly after the meeting, that's fine too. And I'm going to talk more about the agenda and minutes in the next module. Communicate with the principal. It is so important that you build a collaborative relationship with your principal. And regular meetings, as I've talked about already, will build that trust that is necessary for you and your principal to work together. This is particularly important and maybe a little bit difficult if your relationship with your principal so far this year is not going as smoothly as you would like. Sometimes we have to be the teacher, right? We have to, through our actions and through the way we behave, show how we would like to be treated in response. So it's about building that relationship with the principal. What do you think about this? I was thinking about going this way. Do you think that would be a good idea? What are you hearing and how can we work together to fix it? You want, with your principal, to create an ethos, a practice of engagement that goes throughout the school. And it's all about relationships, relationships, relationships. If you don't have a good relationship with your principal, with your council members, with the parents and caregivers in your school, with the teachers, with the students, you cannot have engagement. And as a leader in your school, part of your job is communication and relationship building. Again, we're going to talk about that more in next module. And of course, it's your job to chair the meetings. You have to make sure that you're following the agenda. You may need to keep a speaker list. You want to keep an eye on who is talking. Is somebody talking more than someone else? Does someone look like they would like to say something? Is everyone encouraged to participate within the time frame that you have set up? And it's also your job to make sure that the code of conduct and the code of ethics is being followed at every council meeting. to build a practice of respecting the differing viewpoints, to sit. Sometimes we have to sit in a feeling of discomfort when people are saying things that we don't necessarily agree with, as long as they are not being racist or oppressive. We want to hear what everyone is saying. And so it's about, in your chairing of the meetings, to establish a norms for how discussion is going to take place in your school. That you are responsible for making sure those norms are followed, but you will want to talk with your parents and caregivers, with the people who attend, and most importantly, with your members. How do they see discussions and things working out in a council meeting? Because you don't want people coming to one council meeting and go, whoa, I got better things to do. I don't need to come back to another one. You want your parents and caregivers to see there's some point in coming to council meeting that they are going to learn something. They're going to gain something. They're going to get information or skills or capabilities that they can then go home to help with their kids. And it's also, as part of chairing your meetings, your responsibility to ensure that no personal issues are brought to the floor of the school council. So let me give you an example. I have a problem with the way discipline is occurring in my son's class. I don't think it's fair. I think that some kids are being disciplined a lot. Some kids are getting away with it. I cannot stand up at a school council meeting and say, I don't like the way things are happening in my son's class. It's blah, blah, blah. You can't say that. What you can say, and if someone comes to you with an issue, you can say, I have a concern, I have a question about the discipline practices at the school. Could we hear something from the principal about how discipline, if there's a philosophy, if there's a practice for discipline occurring in the school, and what should I know? What should all of the parents here know about how that's being rolled out? So that's your job when you're chairing meetings, to make sure that the meeting is rolling along, people are getting to talk, but there's people are being respectful of each other, and that nothing personal arrives on the council floor. So that's it for tonight for the basics of school councils. I wanted to end with this quote that came from a principal, I believe in the States. Great school culture is not an accident. It happens when we recognize that we all depend on each other and then work together to create supportive, caring conditions for everyone: students, teachers, support staff, guests, everyone. He should have said parents, but we'll let him away with it for now. And I want you to understand, and I know that the Parent and Community Engagement Office wants you to understand, that as leaders within your school, it is your job to help build a great school culture where everyone feels valued, respected, and heard. And I hope that this module and the next 3 modules will help to make you feel better as a leader in creating that culture. So what's next? We're going to look at the next module is going to look at how to manage a meeting. It's going to look at goal setting, tools for effective engagement. It's going to look at the importance of communication. And actually, it's not just the next one, it's the next 3 modules, I'm sorry. It's going to look at communications, how you can go to the margins of your community so that you are hearing from everybody. It's going to look at conflict resolution. We're going to take some time to look at conflict resolution. That is one of the jobs of a school chair. It is the job that I think makes school chairs a little bit nervous, but there are ways that that you can do it effectively, and that you can feel confident as a leader in resolving any conflict that comes up, and how you can lead your school in all of the areas of consultation that we discussed this evening. So I'm going to stop sharing. And
Nancy, I can read some of the questions for you if you like.
Yes, please.
Okay, the first one, what is the requirement for quorum, or is it defined in each individual set of bylaws?
Okay, I lost you for part. It's what is the qualification for
Sorry,
quorum?
what
Yeah.
is the requirement for quorum, or is it defined in each individual set of bylaws?
Okay. Quorum is part of the template. I should have my copy with me here, and I don't. It's 50% plus one. If you are appointing, so quorum is 50% plus one, the majority having to be parent members. So remember, I went through, if you have four, at least five have to be parent members. You would then have nine, you would have 9 members there. The majority of that would, the quorum would be 50%, which would be 4.5 or 5. So you'll have to have 5 parents there, 5 or 6 parents there. So 50% plus 1 is quorum. I don't know why I can't make my screen bigger.
After the election day, what is the process of appointing members throughout the year?
Okay, so that's also in the template. What you would do is, if you maybe you know somebody who is a parent who's serving on a committee, because any parent and caregiver in the school can serve on a committee. So you may become aware of someone from a school council member, someone who is serving on a committee and seems really interested, or it could be a parent that's volunteering, or someone who's asked questions of a school council member about what's council about. And you would say, would you be interested in serving on council? It would come to council, to school council. The election of to fill a vacancy has to be 60% of the membership. Of the all of the school council members would vote at 60%, and then that person would be appointed to council. The same would hold true for the appointment of the community rep.
How do we know what number bylaw is? Not sure what this.
What number bylaw is?
Yeah, do they mean like what version of bylaw?
Maybe you could, whoever wrote that question could rewrite it again and give us just a little.
Down at the bottom, if you're still here. Can the principal veto the community reps selected by the council?
No, but they could express their concern to council, and council should listen carefully to why they are saying, why they are expressing the concern about who the council has chosen as a community rep.
Okay. Are all of the members mandatory, i.e. teacher and non-teacher rep, student rep, community rep?
Yes. The only one that's not mandatory is the student rep in elementary school, but everyone else is mandatory and should participate in discussions and has a vote. And if they have something they need to report, should be making reports.
What do you need to vote on and what do you not have to vote on? For example, if you want to change the committee structure, does that have to be done via a vote?
Committee structure. So I'm going to, if you mean having a committee, setting up a certain committee, yes. You can work through voting or you can work through consensus. And we're going to look at that. I believe that's the next module. We're going to look at consensus. The next module it's tomorrow, isn't it, Margaret?
Oh.
Yikes. We're repeating these twice. So if you don't want to come 2 nights in a row, you can come to the second one in November. So you can just make decisions via voting or via consensus building. But The executive should not be making decisions all on their own. Nope. Council, if you're making a decision of something you're going to do, activity you're going to do, something you're going to support, most definitely where you're going to spend money or raise money, it all has to be decided by the council as a whole.
Okay. Can you have hybrid council meetings where members are online and in person? I heard that if members that are virtual, it won't count as a member who is in attendance and their votes won't count. We have a large body of voting members who come to our council this year.
Yes, you may have a hybrid meeting. The only thing you can't do is vote by proxy. So that may be where the confusion is. You can't send in a letter and saying, okay, this is what my vote is. You have to attend either virtually or in person to vote. But yeah, you can have hybrid meetings. School councils across the board saw the number of participants at their council meetings rise dramatically during COVID because they were able to do it online.
What happens if you have a meeting scheduled, you have 10 members who are voting members, and only 4 show up? I assume you don't just cancel it, but I assume it means you just can't vote on anything.
Well, if you have 4 parent members that show up, then you can only have 3 of the other members because the majority have to be parents. Right? So if your teacher rep, your non-teacher rep, and your community rep show up, then you definitely need 4 parents. Right? Because I think that's 7. Yeah, you need the 4 parents. Okay, Margaret looks skeptical, but I think she just froze. So I will look in and see. So I think we were at what happens if you have a meeting scheduled, you have 10 members who are voting members. Oh, okay, we just did that one. So I hope I answered that. Do we need to do bylaws every year? No, you do not. Don't worry about it. You do need to do the bylaws template. And if you haven't done the bylaws template, that must be the first order of business. The first, that must be your first goal for the year, is to create a committee, 2-3 people who will take the PDF, look at all of the 12 or 13 options and decide what works best and come back. So you should review your bylaws every 3 to 4 years. Our communities are changing very quickly, and what works for your community this year may not work for your community in 2027. So that's the only thing, but bylaws, yeah, you're writing them for the next 3 or 4 years. Okay, let's see. How often are bylaws revisited? I know my school already has bylaws in place. Is this something that is reviewed annually? It's a good idea. It's a good idea to review your bylaws, just go through them, make sure everything works. But I'm not sure. You say your school has bylaws in place. I hope that's the bylaws from the template. If it's not the bylaws from the template, you must do the template. This is mandatory. You can add, as I said, you could add stuff that maybe isn't addressed, as long as it doesn't contradict what's in the template. And yeah, review annually, but you don't have to worry about. You're just looking at does it make sense? You know where I think you may find that you want, and you can do amendments, and the template talks about amendments. If you're just building your council and you decide, okay, let's go with 10 because Nancy said we have to have 10, and then this year you get 8 members, and next year you get 12 members, 12 people who say they want to do it. You might decide in a couple of years, you know what, I don't think 10 members is quite enough. So you can amend your bylaws and make it, now we're going to have 12 members, or we're going to have 15 members. So it's always a good idea to take a look at some of the things and see if they make sense.
I'm back. I don't know where I went, but I went somewhere.
We are at, our principal sends out council meeting minutes in the weekly newsletter. Is that acceptable, or should council be sending them to the school community? That's acceptable. Council's responsible for making sure the minutes get to the principal, but I would also make sure that there was a hard copy somewhere in the school. If you have a community bulletin board, you could put it on that, or you could just have a binder in the office and advise or the library, and advise the parent caregiver community that our minutes are being kept. You can find them online, or you can find them here, or you could put them, some schools put them on the school website. So I hope I answered okay. Should I keep going, Margaret, or do you want to pick up?
Yeah, you have to give me a co-host, because when I got bumped out,
Okay.
and then I can read them for you, because it doesn't allow me to see the Q&A. You can read them if you want. I'm fine with that.
All right. Yeah, because I don't know.
Whatever's easier for you.
I'll read them because you know, I don't know how to turn it. Make you co-host. Okay. Where did I kind of mucked up my thing here. What do you do if you can't recruit a secretary and no one wants to take minutes? Whew. Then I would try to recruit 2 or 3 secretaries, because people are kind of scared. Well, what if I don't make the minute, and I have to take the minutes all the time? And we're going to talk about the minutes too, because it doesn't have to be as tough a job as it seems to be. So if you could talk 2 or 3 people into sharing the job, then maybe, hopefully, you will have a better chance of doing it. And also, you need to have a chat with your members and say, look, you guys signed up to be members to make sure that this council worked. And part of this council working is that we have to have minutes. And I cannot chair the meeting and take the minutes. So 1 or 2 or 3 of you have to step up to the plate and agree to take the minutes. It's part of the leadership role. Will this presentation be shared with us later? Margaret.
Yes, and I previously had put it into the chat, the link to the PCEO YouTube channel. So you can go and scroll back in the chat, unless like me, you got kicked out several times and you no longer have access to that. I will put it in the chat again.
If you just go to YouTube too and do PCEO TDSB, you'll see it come up. No, I don't share the slides. Well, the slides will be available on the YouTube, but I don't share the slides themselves. Could council reach out to principals for feedback from parents through means such as surveys? Reach out to principal for feedback from parents who, if you're talking, when you survey your parents and you hear from how they feel about certain things, you can take that feedback, share it with your council, and share it with your principal. We're going to talk more about this in, I can't remember which module it is, 2 or 3. We're going to be talking about the school improvement plan and 3 different ways that you can consult with your parents and share that with the principal. But yeah, anything you hear from your parents, you can share with the principal, because you want the principal to share stuff with you as well. Sharing the slides with us just through the YouTube channel. You listed school budget as something principals might be, but not required to discuss with council chairs. How much detail do you recommend principals share with council, and how do you recommend councils ask for it? You could say it's my understanding that the TDSB suggests that the school council could participate in the construction of the school budget or have input into it. How might you and I work together to make this happen? You could start there. Failing that, your superintendent should know that this is a recommendation and would provide something, provides you with some support for that. Are teacher reps and non-teacher reps required at meetings? We currently do not have any attending our meetings. Yes, they are required. The principal knows they're required. The principal is responsible for making sure they elect or appoint their representatives at school council. And you could say, I was at a training session and I learned that the regulation 612 says, because they're required to follow the Education Act. What happens if you can't fill these mandatory positions? You mean like teacher rep and non-teacher rep and community rep? I would ask the principal why the teacher rep and non-teacher rep positions can't be filled, because it's your understanding that regulation 612 says it must be filled. And the community rep, when school councils were created in the mid-90s, it was a result of a Royal Commission on Education in the province. And the Royal Commission said that there had to be more collaboration between the three groups that were involved in education: home, school, and community. So when the province created school councils, they made parent members, teacher members, and community members think of the three legs on a stool as the three branches that needed to come together to work together and collaborate for pupil achievement. And so it's about thinking again, where do you as a council want to go? What sort of things do you want to support? I'll give you a little hint of what's coming. Is part of that may be coming from the school improvement plan. What's been identified in the school improvement plan as places that need improvement? So how can you as a council support a couple of those areas? And who in your community could you get to help you to do that? And if you work that way, then when you go to find the rep, you could say, look, this is what our school is aiming to do for the year. We really need input from our community on how to do that. And we thought that your organization would be really great supporters of that. And are there a couple of people who'd be willing to share that role? Do you need approval from the principal to form a committee? No. I.e. the principal suggested a safe and caring committee and equity committee, but one of our parent members wants to run an eco committee. Do we need principal approval to add a committee? The school council looks at, suggests, and votes on, or does consensus, agrees on the development of all committees. If the principal suggested a safe and caring school committee and an equity committee, that's a great suggestion. And I would assume that they would be looking at some of the stuff that was in the school improvement plan and would go from there. So they can suggest and should be welcome to suggest committees that you would have, but council may also decide that they want an eco committee, and they will do that as well. Can you share the information for tomorrow's meeting? You mean what's on it? Yeah, let me just tell you. Here's what's on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. I'm going to talk about effective meetings. I'm going to talk about decision-making. I'm going to talk about committees, and I'm going to talk about managing conflict resolution process. Are you able to elaborate on quorum being 51%? I think I answered that one, but it has to be 51% of everyone that's at the meeting, and the majority of that 51% has to be parents or parent caregiver members. What if the principal doesn't want to attend the meetings and we don't have a VP? I was at a school council training meeting, and I learned that Regulation 612 of the Education Act says that the principal or their designate must be at every school council meeting. And I know this is difficult for you to get to those meetings, and I'm just wondering how we can work it out so that if you cannot attend a meeting, perhaps we could agree on who your designate could be, and they could attend the meeting in your place and report to us the information that you would normally do and take back to you what has occurred at the council meeting. If you don't have a VP, you would have, and right now at the moment, the title escapes me, but you would have a senior teacher at the school who sort of has sort of a role of the VP. So it could be that person. I wouldn't agree to just any old teacher. Not that any old teacher wouldn't be great, but they are representing the principal, and they're representing the principal to you, and they're representing you to the principal. So it has to be someone that everybody's comfortable and confident with. And if that doesn't work well or doesn't work at all, a conversation with your superintendent might be in line. Can infrastructural issues be voted on, or are they out of scope? For example, to change universal washrooms to gendered washrooms. I think that's a discussion that you could have on council, and you could give them advice. Let's remember that we have, again, this discussion, I think, would have to be done in a very respectful and understanding way, that we would have to sit in our discomfort with what we're hearing from some people and what their ideas and reasoning is, and then to discuss it in a fulsome and respectful way. Council can then make recommendations to the principal. You're providing advice. The principal has to come back and tell you, again, I'm taking the advice and I'm going to roll it out this way. I'm not taking the advice, and here's why. I like part of the advice, and we're thinking we might do this and this, but not this and this. So that's the way it would work. But I think that would be an acceptable topic. Is the school TDSB secretary able to help with treasurer positions if no parent shows interest? No. No, that's a conflict of interest. She's an employee of the board. School council is raising money on their own. It's school council money. It's not board money. It's school council money. It has to be accounted for. You must, as school council, be transparent, accountable, and inclusive in all that you do. You can't do that without a treasurer. I don't like two people sharing the treasurer's job, because it's about money and being able to be responsible for the money coming in and the money going out. But if the only way you can do it is to have two people do it, then maybe two people would share it. Again, like I said, for secretary, it's your leading council, and it's sitting down and having a very serious talk with the parent members of your school council and saying, we need a treasurer if we're going to do fundraising. If we don't have a treasurer, we're not doing fundraising. And how are we going to do that? But you do have other money that comes in from the board and the ministry that has to be accounted for. And before someone asks me what it is, you get $1.25 per pupil, minimum of $300, maximum of $1,000 from TDSB, comes in on budget line 41,500 of the school's budget, and you get $500 from the province. That is not the innovation grant. That's $500 from the province. The money from the TDSB is to run your council and engagement, and the money from the province is to engage your parents, outreach to your parent community. What does it mean to improve student achievement? How does supporting extracurricular opportunities and buying stuff for the school typically fit into that? "50 years of research around the world tell us that when parents engage in their children's education, their children will improve to the best of their abilities in their schooling, in their grades, and how they are doing at school and everything about it. I have yet to find, and every time I do a webinar, I ask people to look and send me an article. I've yet to find an article that tells me that fundraising helps improve pupil achievement. Now, I know that buying some things for the school can help. Buying laptops or iPads to help with the kids. That can help, absolutely. But you as a school council need to consider what your role is. Your role is pupil student achievement. Research says that parents engaging their kids' education can improve pupil achievement. So how can you help your parents and caregivers support your kids' achievement? In high school, that might mean understanding, well, at any level, it might mean parents understanding how kids are evaluated and assessed. Where do their grades come from? It might mean understanding what a rubric is and how assignments are marked on a rubric. It might, in high school, understand my blueprint, which is, for those of you not in high school, choosing the courses that you need so that when you graduate from university, you can go to the trades, you can go to college, you can go to university. You've got that. Any number of things. It might mean helping. Some parents don't know how to support their kids' mathematics, numeracy learning, or their literacy learning. So that's how you improve student achievement. And it's through the parents. If there is a teacher rep at the meeting, is a non-teacher rep still required if they only receive one vote? Oh, no, sorry, I'm sorry. The teacher rep gets one vote, the non-teacher rep gets one vote. Right? So yes, you want them both there. You could have 2 teacher reps and 2 non-teacher reps. This only gets one vote. This only gets one vote. So they share. So one teacher comes September, December, February. The other one comes November, January, April. And they share it. Yeah, a lot of schools haven't had non-teacher reps. It's time to start. Are there parent number requirements for each committee that school council sets up? Nope. You can have as many. I would like to see at least 3 people so that you could have, it's not like 1 or 2 people making decisions. They're not making decisions. We're going to talk about this. They're just making recommendations to council. Sorry, isn't quorum 50% plus 1, not 51%? Yes, you're right. I'm tired. It's 50% plus 1. Related to the principal not wanting to attend, she also wants to have the bare minimum of meetings at 4, but we usually have a monthly meeting in the past. Does the principal get to decide how many meetings we have, or does council decide? Council decides. However, I remember sitting at meetings where we set the dates and the principal had their calendar, which was chock full of things that meetings that they had to go to, things that they had to do as a principal, days of significance they had to take into consideration. So that is why you really need to work with your principal on setting your meeting dates. Council decides how many. You might want to say, let's start out, you could have one, in October and one in November, nothing in December, one in January and February, nothing in March, last meeting in May. Kind of get them used to council meetings. Let them see what's in it for them, how their life can be easier if they have parents, caregivers on their side, helping their kids, helping their children do better and moving ahead. Margaret has her hand up. Margaret?
That's so polite. I was just thinking, if the principal's calendar is so full that they're not able to come to an agreeable compromise, then that would be when they would delegate to their vice principal or the position of responsibility, the person holding those positions. So there truly is no situation where meetings can't be held because they would just delegate to somebody else.
Yep. Thank you. And again, this is where I'm trying to get to you. I'm trying to build you so that you feel like you also are a leader in the school, so that you can say, look, our community likes to have X number of meetings. Let's try to work out how this can be. If you cannot attend a meeting, the legislation says you must appoint a designate. And we go from there. Can we have more than one community member? Yes, you may, but the position only gets one vote. Can our OA be the treasurer? No, it really has to be a parent. Can you please remind us what a non-teacher rep is? Secretary, caretaker, your OA, your EAs, CYWs, SNAs, anyone who works in the school. It could be your lunchroom supervisor. I've had a lot of questions come up over the years. Can a lunchroom supervisor who's a parent be on council? No, they can't, because they're employed by the board at the school. Well, they could be the non-teacher representative. Okay. Anyone who is employed by the board at your school who's not a teacher is a non-teacher rep. At our school council often pays for equipment. If we're supposed to focus on parent involvement, should we move these purchases to a different organization, home and school, or something else? First of all, you can only have a home and schools in your school if you have had a legacy one from before. You can't create one now. You have to have had one that's been in existence since the 1990s, when they were in existence before school councils came. You can listen. You can pay for stuff for the school. You cannot the legislation tells us that you cannot pay for things that should be paid for by the board. So you can't buy textbooks. You can't buy supplies that the teachers need within the classroom. If there is something that you want to pay for as a school council, you can do that. You can do that. Please try to make sure that what you pay for broadly can assist all of the students in the school at some point. You do not have to buy whatever the school asks from you. You may say to the school, if there is something that the teachers would like, please send us a list of things that you would like and why you would like to have them, and we will consider it. And then I would also ask, because again, transparent, accountable, inclusive, I would also ask for a report back from the teacher or the section or the principal on how the money was spent, how much was spent, where was it spent, what was it spent on, how was the product used. And then finally, if you can find some way to move that into your parent community. So for example, let's say you buy iPads or something. I'm just kind of scrambling here for what it is. And the school needs iPads for whatever reason. You could then hold a workshop for the parents of the students who will be using the iPads to let them see what they are, how they work, what websites they might be using or connecting with, and how, if there was any way of doing that at home. Just that's learning for your parents. That's involving them in what's going on and where you're spending your money. Okay, so
I think that's it, Nance.
Margaret, is that it?
I think so. I don't see any more questions.
All right. If there are no more questions, again, you can, I will put in the chat my email address. And if I could spell, Can't talk and spell at the same time. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to write me. The next webinar, I'm sorry, they're 2 days together. The next webinar is tomorrow night. It's at 6:30. And then I can't remember. I think there's one the next week and then one the last week of October, and then they're repeated again in November. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I went over an hour. I always do. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you so much for all of the work you do for your school and your students and your parents and caregivers and your teachers. I cannot begin to tell you how important it is and what a difference you're making. And I hope that these webinars help you to feel like a leader in your school. Margaret, is there anything you?
No.
No?
Nope. You
That's
covered.
great. Have a wonderful evening, and maybe we'll see you back here tomorrow. Good night, and thank you for coming.